Can you see my slide?
I can.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
Um, so a few words about me. I worked for Center for Research Computing at the University of Notre Dame, and there I worked with researchers from many different fields. And then I moved to California, where I worked for Center for Artificial Intelligence in Diagnostic Medicine at the University of California, Irvine. And there I developed AI and machine learning algorithms for diagnostic medicine, in particular for radiology and clinical applications. And I'm currently senior research scientist in research computing team at Chapman University. A little bit about Chapman University. It's a small private college in Southern California. We have less than 10,000 students. It's R2 institution. Our research computing team has one director, one systems administrator, and one research scientist, who's me. This slide is a courtesy of our Associate Vice President, because we do have an AI committee with leadership of the university. And after November 2022, when ChatGPT was released, Chapman University leadership was very proactive in quickly forming these AI committees to come together from different point of views and see what can be done at the institutional level. So initially, guidance for the use of generative AI were released, and then additional guidance for use within research and scholarships. And initial concerns were lack of enterprise contracts and copyright concerns, data privacy, data security. These are all familiar themes probably to everybody now. In terms of the needs of researchers and current strategy, there are different angles at which we work and look at this. There are requests for programmatic API access to models that I have been working with different researchers and different requests. I am involved in consultations and collaborations with researchers. There are some requests for assistance with hosting infrastructure, for training, running models, access to web-based generative technologies, summarizing PDFs, files, articles. And last but not the least is campus-wide education campaign, boosting AI literacy. We do a lot of presentations and workshops across different colleges. So the initial strategy at the high level is to utilize platforms and off-the-shelf solutions that will not require significant maintenance as the technology evolves. And then ensure solutions are evaluated for security, accessibility, and legal language if applicable. So our initial, that kind of enterprise level tools are Microsoft Copilot for Web. It does have enterprise data protection guarantees. It's available to all Chapman faculty, staff, and students. And we also have Azure OpenAI, and we make it available by request. And that's it. And I'll stop sharing. Did I stop sharing?
Yes, you did. Yep. Thank you, Anna.
Sure.
Yeah. And Anna, how long have you been at Chapman?
2.5 years.
Great. Well, and I think that was what we're trying to also do with this call is having an R2 university, hearing how they're approaching this space. And it looks like we do have Don with us now. Don Lambert is here from U of M, and thanks for being here, Don. And with that, I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of give us some background of what's happening at U of M. So thanks.
Sure. So I'm Don Lambert. I'm the Director of Emerging Technologies and AI Services here at the University of Michigan. My team is the team responsible for producing the 3 AI tools that we're offering today. We refer to them as UMGPT, UMGPT Maisie, and UMGPT Toolkit. All of our tools were built with four pillars, and the pillars were privacy. We wanted to make sure that we had tools that were available that were going to meet the privacy concerns of the university. So, that we could put student data in here, that we could put research data in, that we could, because we have a medical system, that we could put PHI data in, and have no concerns that any type of IP was going to be leaked out to any third parties. I'm sure we've seen some of the articles where corporations have just pasted information into ChatGPT, and they've lost IP because of it. We did not want to be in that position. Security was big for us, to make sure that our systems were secure, and were secure from design. The other two that I'll point out that were the other pillars were the accessibility. Some of the tools that are available today do not score well from an ADA perspective. So accessibility was a key for us from the beginning. And then equitability. Even though we're a major institution, we have students here that are on Pell Grants. We have students that can't afford $20 a month for a ChatGPT plus subscription. So we've made the tools available to everyone at the university. When I say everyone, I'm talking active faculty, staff, and students. We don't do alumni. We don't do any type of third-party partnerships. We don't do retirees. The other place is it's all four campuses. So our Ann Arbor campus, our Dearborn campus, our Flint campus, and the university hospital systems. So that's the big overview. And I think how did we get here? How did we get started? Really came from our provost, our president, and our CIO. They all agreed that this AI was going to be a disruptive technology. It was going to not only disrupt our teaching efforts, but it was also going to disrupt almost every industry out there. So that we were going to take a leadership position here and learn how to address and use these technologies appropriately.
Great, thanks, Don. And Don, your background is in. I noticed that you previously were in the College of Engineering.
Yeah, I spent the last. I spent the last 28 years working in the College of Engineering. I spent enough time there. I did a little bit of everything. I ran email, I ran database services, I ran storage. Was part of the team that set up Active Directory here 20 some years ago. I've probably shut down as many services as I've started.
Great.
How did I get into this position? I realized early on that this was going to be a major disruptor of what was going on. And so I had actually started with my IT peers on campus, more of a grassroots effort, trying to get people organized. From my point of view, I realized we didn't need 78 different AI solutions on campus. So how could we start talking and start sharing early on? And so it was the combination of, past experiences, pushing this idea from a grassroots effort, and that is why they gave me the opportunity to work on this project, as the interim, and apparently I did a good enough job. They gave me the position full time in December.
Great, congratulations. That's cool. That's great. So for today's conversation, I think that that's what a lot of us on this call are doing, is we're working with our peers at our institutions, trying to and within our organizations, trying to get in front of this and try to support these tools. And so how we are running this call today is I just have a couple questions that I'll give to both you and Anna, the same question, and get your perspectives, because you're sitting at either ends of the country in different institutions. And so, so with that, so one area that I think you kind of touched on the privacy piece, Don, but I thought maybe I would reach to Anna on this question as well and say, who are you working with closely, Anna, and how is your institution approaching the risk and approaching the appropriate use issues with those tools at your campus?
Right. So there are kind of two directions. One is the direction that I'm personally involved. It's working with researchers, making sure that we meet with them, we talk with them on the consultation level and collaboration level. So I'm involved with researchers in discussing what kind of projects they have in mind and ideas. I consult them about AI if they are interested in using AI tools or applying any kind of AI technology or doing that maybe themselves. But very often, researchers come from different fields and they're not very familiar with AI in general. They have some kind of high level understanding, but not in details. And we have a lot of such need because people who work in the field of pharmacy, School of Pharmacy, for example, they have some healthcare applications that they would like to do and apply for grants, and they are writing proposals. But they need to have somebody who has expertise in generative AI because this is what they would like to use. It also comes from many other schools, including College of Engineering. We have conversations with people from communication field, from many different fields. So that need to use AI and understand AI, that need is addressed by consulting, by offering collaborations, and also I give some talks when they invite me to do so. On the other hand, there is a high level involvement of the leadership. So our AI committee led by the CIO and provost. So our senior leadership includes the president, provost, faculty senate, office of research, IT, legal affairs, and the library. So whenever there are questions about privacy, if it's involves some legal counsel, then we have legal counsel. If it's more about data privacy, then we work at IT level. And when there are more general guidelines for faculty, then of course, like provost and faculty senate may, play a big role in that.
It looks like you're muted, Justin.
Thank you. And Don, you had kind of hit on some of those points that Anna was making with the structure of the pillars of the services that you set up. Could you maybe talk about those as well, and then maybe give some examples of how that is relating to some of the research that's happening, or how that's implementing, or how that's affecting researchers and some of the work they're doing?
Sure. So in the chat, I pasted in two links previously. The one is just about the AI services my team is using, and the other is a reference to what we refer to as the Gen AI report. Gen AI report was created almost a year ago now by faculty and researchers here at the university, and it was it's recommendations on what we need to do from a university standpoint to use and engage AI. So my team, as an example, was created based on one of those recommendations. So the fact that we should have AI services available on campus. Now there are still things that are in those recommendations that are actively being worked on. So I know there's work right now in the College of Engineering that they're trying to, for the college, write their AI guidelines for research, for instruction, and for administrative purposes. And again, the idea there is to make sure that how they're using it, when they're using it, how they're properly disclosing the use of it. In the end, we don't want to damage the reputation of the university or of the individual researchers. So how do we use the tools appropriately? We had guidelines that were available to us in the instruction space as early as, and these wouldn't be college or department specific, but overarching guidelines for the university from that report, and the idea that it's responsible for the university and the instructors to explain and set the standards for their individual classes. So I've seen different places where we've got faculty members that have in their syllabus put in, you cannot use AI at all. I've seen examples where we've got people that are saying, use it for assignment 1, but don't use it for assignment 2. To the far extreme, where I've seen professors in the School of Information say, before you come to office hours, you need to try to solve your problem with the AI tools, and bring your AI transcript with you. So I think we're definitely, looking at this for all the use cases, and, building better guidelines where necessary. I would expect the guidelines that come out of the College of Engineering will be the de facto standard for many on campus. And if not, it will be their final report will end up being the initial draft for a campus-wide, statements on this. So I think the answer is yes, we are at the edge. We did move forward without saying that, hey, we have absolutely every policy, rule, guideline, statement written down. We identified the fact that we needed them, and we're building them as we go. So
Great. Okay.
I think that's an overview and not necessarily just specific to research, but I think it answers your question.
It does, and I think we'll get to some of those other pieces in a moment. So Anna, I don't know if you had anything else you would like to add to that, and I didn't. Also, maybe you could speak to some of the use cases and some of the solutions that you've worked with. Maybe one example that you've worked with a researcher and how that collaboration went.
Right. Well, I think that because I work mostly like on the ground, my approach is a little bit more specific than just sort of overall guidance. Although, of course, we comply if there is a need to evaluate any tools or any kind of work. So when I work with researchers, one of the approaches that I take is using Azure OpenAI as there are GPT sort of models, the series of them. It starts at 3.5 and goes on. And I developed some of the modules that talk to these models, and you can use your own content. You can ask your own questions, and you can keep your data local, and yet use this cloud computing that we have available. And I've done quite a bit of this, and there are projects in the healthcare, or we have some more theoretical computer science projects where researchers are looking at doing research with their own context. So we are not looking to upload something to GPT and just ask a question. We're looking to provide the context that we're interested in and draw answers from that context. And I'm a big proponent to try to use API and to, I have some modules that I developed where you don't have to upload anything. You keep everything local, but the model is in Azure, and we have data protections. We have contracts with Microsoft, so you don't have to worry about your data privacy as much.
Great. We have lots of questions that are coming through in the chat. So Don and Anna, if you keep an eye on the chat, feel free to post and hit responses there as we're going back and forth on responses. Also, to the folks on the call, you can feel free to use that call document to post your questions there, and also post your resources and pieces like that. Katya, I don't know if you wanted to step in and read off maybe one or two questions you're seeing coming in on the chat.
I can read the question I actually posted there and explain the
Sure, go ahead.
a little bit. So obvious that when universities post the policy that you should not share your data within a ChatGPT or some other AI tools, this seems to be easy. You just don't copy and paste there, right? And that works very well. But with integrated tools, the ones that GitHub Copilot provides for students and faculty for free on, let's say, within our cluster, it's very easy to enable them for both students and faculty. And some projects work with restricted data, some projects do not work with restricted data. And the way you work with those Copilot tools, especially, for example, in case of RStudio, you type in the comment and you ask and you construct histogram based on the data, and Copilot happily gives you the code. But the question is, what does it really do with the data? Do the data expose to anything but my local project? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. And if so, how can we protect the data and say, well, students, if, let's say, for this project, you can't use RStudio or can't enable, and that means that, you know, when they switch between projects, they have to enable or disable the Copilot in for RStudio VS Code and so on. I just wonder if someone actually made some research and know whether the data is safe or not in those environments.
So my answer is going to be, this always starts with something I see few people actually do, and that is to read the license that came with your software or came with your service and understand the terms of service in terms, you know, privacy policies, because they tell you very specifically what they're going to do or what they're not going to do. So I think those, you know, why do we understand and believe that the data protection agreement we have with Microsoft is protecting us? Well, because we've read it, we've asked questions about it, we've had it reviewed by our general counsel, you know, so we have a good understanding of what there is. Now, we also go out and we publish information that where we can. And again, I put a link to our Safe Computing site to try to inform our community about what types of data or what the restrictions are of what the tools can be used for. So can it be used with personally identifiable information? Can it be used with student data or FERPA data? You know, can it be used for any of the DoD, Department of Defense type data types? So ITAR, EAR, CUI, CMMC, you know, so that, you know, that's part of our outreach and education, trying to make sure that people understand when and how they could use them, or are they going to be secure. My team does not have jurisdiction over what people can purchase, but we can, and we have done our best to work with our procurement office, and we set up some guidelines that when you go out and you want to buy, you know, whatever piece of software, you know, plus their new AI or plus their new Copilot, whatever those things are, that you're asking the right questions, or hopefully asking the right questions to the vendors. So, you know, where are you processing my data? Is your data center within the United States? That makes a difference depending on what you're looking to do. So even though, you know, Microsoft has a lot of data centers actually in Canada, that's technically an export of my data, right? So if I'm using that data center, I need to make sure that people understand that if you use this, does your data have any export controls? Even when it stays within my virtual private cloud, right? And Microsoft's not accessing that data, nobody else is accessing it. I have technically exported the data outside the country. So again, this is what our Safe Computing site's about. That's why we try to provide this kind of information and say, you can use it for this type of data or research, and you can't use it for that. So it's about communications. But that communications all starts, and it's all of our responsibility to understand license terms, conditions, appropriate use. And in the end of the day, you're responsible to make sure that the data that you're working with is secure.
Yes, and so I was trying to find that information because GitHub, again, GitHub Copilot is available to all students and faculty for free, and so we don't necessarily need to be involved. Or rather, I should say, they don't need to ask us, right? But we want to provide them with information, what we recommend or what we don't recommend to do on our cluster. And so I'm just curious if anyone found anything on GitHub Copilot pages that states what they actually do with the data that do they actually look at the data? Do they upload them anywhere from the editing environment of VS Code or RStudio?
Yeah, so I think what might be different there between our environments is I think we're using it's GitHub Enterprise or GitHub Business. I know that we pay $19 a month per user for it. Part of that, I'm sorry.
You get your preferential contract terms that way, Don, right? Yeah.
No, that's retail pricing.
Yeah.
So, but that's how we cover.
Yeah, but the university covers that, and you work through the licensing agreement because it's a university purchase, right?
Correct. It's a university purchase. I mean, we build the departments for it, but yes, it's a university purchase.
Yeah. Great. Anna, did you have any? There was a question about examples of researchers using Microsoft Copilot or Azure OpenAI.
Yeah, so I will add a little more about, like, for example, we use Microsoft Copilot. The reason that we have it is because we have a contract for enterprise contract with data privacy. So the data is not exposed to the world. It's only it's kept within the institution. So that is actually the reason in our university. They kind of go slow, they review and they look at use cases, and they review policies and guidelines, because it's not that easy, well, to get something with data privacy, to have these contracts. And I would even allow myself to say that by default, if you do not have specific protections, you cannot assume that it's private. So by default, it's not. How it's used, maybe there are specifics, but if, for example, you use ChatGPT application and you use data, you have prompts, all of that can be used for training. It can be used, the data gets collected. So by default, it's probably used in some fashion anyway. But these specific contracts that I know Chapman is looking at, and this is what Don was talking about, when there are data protections written into the contracts, that then in this case, you have a contract that you go by. And this is why we have Azure OpenAI, because we do have a contract with Microsoft. And one of the examples I can give you, it's a very simple example, but it was, but I was asked about it. So we have researchers that work in kind of interdisciplinary fields, and they very often have to deal with the fact that people that work with them, they're not necessarily computational, but they need to have computational skills. So that availability of generative AI in such fields become very valuable, because as Katya, you pointed out, you can just upload data and it gives you kind of some answers. So you don't have to, it seems as if you don't have to know as much, and maybe write your own code. And one of the examples that was given to me is that if you give a list of names to ChatGPT, it can pretty accurately produce gender according to the first and last name in the list. And the problem is that if somebody wants to do that, and maybe even on a large scale, and they do that in ChatGPT, then the data can be exposed. You give all these names and you might not want that. So I actually have a little module that does that. So all your data is local, and only you can ask any questions. It doesn't have to be only gender, but gender is one of the questions. And this data that is stored locally, you go to the model, ChatGPT, I mean, not ChatGPT, GPT model in Azure, and ask these questions and produce these results. So in that case, because we do have this Microsoft contract, The data is private, so they don't have to worry about it. And this is the difference between having these specific contracts or not. And this is one of the simple examples where it's really not anything sophisticated. But yet it's very handy. They have long list of participants. They do a lot of kind of human tests, and they need to have some of the data processed for them. So this is one of the examples where it works kind of on both ends.
Great. Don, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I think I can agree with what Anna's saying. Great.
So I'm looking through and I'm seeing some great resources that are being posted in the chat, and I'm moving that into the call doc. Is there any others? If folks have any other questions, specific questions, please feel free to turn your camera on or pop that in. Otherwise, I'll move on to maybe some other questions that I have. You know, so Don, how are you, the services that you posted and listed, how are you, are those on-prem? Are you actually building things locally, or are you utilizing infrastructure from Microsoft and from others?
Yeah, so 98% of our infrastructure is in the cloud. It's in Microsoft Azure.
Okay.
We do have 2 physical servers on campus, and we use that to host other open source large language models. So when you, as I mentioned earlier, UMGPT is our main page that you go to. You can actually pick which model you want to interact with for your conversation. So you can pick GPT-4 Turbo, you can pick GPT-3.5, you can pick Llama 2. The other thing that we offer there is DALL-E 3. But the reason to have the multiple large language models is to understand and be able to actually work with them differently and see what their biases are and see how they, how does the same question get different responses from the different models. So we're offering multiple models thoughtfully, but again, the open source models are running here on campus. So everything else is actually running in the cloud.
Gotcha. Okay. And then support services, do you have a team of people that are there to help researchers, or is that localized support at that point?
So at the moment it's my team. So my team, just for clarity, is actually 4 people at this point. It's 2 web devs and 2 senior systems administrators. The senior systems administrations, and one of the reasons they're senior is the fact that they go out and they actively do these types of consulting. A faculty member wants to know, how can I do, fill in the blank, and my team will take that opportunity to consulting. The admins also do our ticket triage. They also are doing presentations, much like this, around campus. We have a plan to do a cross training or make department or area experts. And how are we going to do that? So that's something we're actively working on now, but I would hope we have something by fall that we actually have somebody who has a better connection to my team, who we can actually communicate and share updates and changes with, but that are closer to our faculty, staff, and researchers.
Great.
So, how do we make these AI ambassadors, if you wanted to, refer to them that way, that are in the department. So bring this knowledge closer to the departments.
Okay. Don, there's another question for you that says, is it easy for you to plug in new models as they become available when you set those services up?
Absolutely. So one of the questions that we often get is, why did we go with Microsoft? So I'd remind everybody that we were, doing this development a year ago. And we, the 4 big players that were really out there to partner with were OpenAI, Google, Amazon, and Azure. OpenAI priced themselves out of contention. AWS wasn't ready to move forward at that time. Google gave us a great presentation. When we told them how much capacity we wanted, they weren't going to be able to provide the capacity in the time frame. Microsoft, on the other hand, said, we don't have the capacity now, but we will have it before you go live. So there was, there was some faith in the fact that they were going to do that. We went live August 21st. They had the capacity for us July 15th. So there were some sleepless nights there going, hey, we've done a lot of work and we may not have any capacity to actually run these services. I think the other thing that once we started that partnership with Microsoft, we got a lot of free consulting and free design. So, the efforts, the whiteboarding, these types of things, for probably the first month and a half, maybe 6 weeks, vetting our ideas, explaining different things to us, getting us in contact with the experts we needed to talk to, was great. The other question that people ask me in this part is like, hey, do you guys have some sort of sweetheart deal with Microsoft? Are you getting any preferential pricing? No, we're paying market rates. But I don't want to discount the fact that, they were great partners. They did work with us and share with us and review our designs. All the code that on our sites is written in-house. And I mentioned I have 4 people today. At the peak last summer, and we did most of this development in about 12 weeks. We probably had about 15 people. We probably had about 6 to 7 in the whole sysadmin developer space, and the rest of that staff members were partial staff members for project management, communications, security, all the other components where we were had partial support from other people on campus. So John had, and because I see it here, is it easy for us to plug in new models? Yes. We realized early on that there will be the next best model, and so I think our framework supports us either deciding that we want to totally move away from Microsoft, if that we made that choice, or if we wanted to provide models from, OpenAI, or we use OpenAI through Azure, but through Google and our Azure OpenAI, or something else we want to run on campus. When we have an AI lab, somebody could make a U of M specific large language model that we want to use. We're positioned to host that and use that as well.
Great. Thank you. We have time for another question where we've got about 7 more minutes left before I should be wrapping up. And anyone else? I guess I'm just going to ask, if we start looking ahead. Well, first off, thanks to all of you for posting those great resources. I've been moving them into the call doc. Gabby from Harvard, thank you, and Amy. If others didn't have questions answered, please let me know. But looking ahead, what do both of you see as key opportunities and maybe some challenges at integrating AI? So what's next at your institutions, and what's your hope as you're working with leadership and moving forward, and you've been on the ground supporting researchers? What are you pushing for from your perspective now?
Yeah, so at the high level, it's difficult to develop process with uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty at every level. So tools and model capabilities may evolve rapidly, and it might introduce additional challenges that we don't currently anticipate. So detecting the use of these tools and knowing what they do and how they do things might be getting harder. On the other hand, and I gave the whole presentation on the subject of large language models and research reproducibility. Because we're working with researchers, reproducibility is really important, and it's actually not only in science and engineering. So working with large language models, and that's why I gave that presentation and emphasize on that, they're non-deterministic. So doing research with them presents additional challenges, and researchers need to understand it as they plan, as they come up with ideas and decide how they can apply this. So if there is a need for, I mean, there is already a need for comprehensive model evaluation and validation. We don't have such methods yet. It's very difficult to describe the strengths and weaknesses in any kind of transparent way of any model. It's hard to compare them because we don't have standardized metrics of evaluation. So evaluating, comparing large language models are very difficult. So I think these are important points going forward as researchers think about how they're going to work with them, not only now, but in the future, and also the institutional level to understand that it's not only very rapidly changing world, it's not only there are more and more models that exist, change. There are some studies out of Stanford that even existing models, they change their behavior over time. So understanding that new scope of challenges, I think is important both at the level of researchers and also at the institutional level.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Anna. Don, looking ahead, what do you see are some key opportunities from where you sit and maybe some challenges?
Yeah, so I think looking ahead, particularly in the AI space, is an interesting challenge. You know, for many years we were always looking ahead to what's 3 years or 5 years out. Now we're talking what's changing in the next 6 to 9 months. Our vision is much reduced because there is so much rapid change. You know, places that we're looking to do more within our own tools. You know, I think we're going to have a large adoption of the Maisie tool for the fall. Didn't really detail it here, but it's very easy in our environment. We've built the connections between our LMS, which is Canvas, and the AI tools. So it's a point and click kind of solution to make an AI that is trained on your course data. I expect we're going to see a lot more of that for the fall. One of the reasons I think we're going to see a lot more of that is some of our early adopter faculty members are already in a position to show and publish information about their results over the first year. Our School of Business, there are a couple of faculty members there that have shown there's been an 8-point increase in scores after they adopted these tools. I've also had a great conversation with one of the College of Engineering faculty. One of the things he teaches in his course is MapReduce. And he said that is the hardest component of his course. That's where he made his first AI. And he said the grades were up across the board in that project. And that's like that's a 2-week project in his course. But that was enough for him to say he wants to make, for each of his projects, he wants to go ahead and make amazing AI to solve each of those problems. So I think, as faculty are talking to each other about their successes, I think we're going to see more of it. Yes, I still think we're going to find, faculty members in the English department or art and architecture or other places that still are going to be the slow adopters. But I think that, we're posed for great growth within the university. I think we're going to continue to look at other types of tools. Like we don't use any of the AI vision tools today. That'll be a big key to multimodal. We have actually made some great improvements in the ability to do math, which we all understand that some of the large language models don't do well. So both being able to give the model, symbolic math and actually have it do something with it and actually get symbolic answers back. I think, there's lots of opportunities. I think we're going to see a lot of growth over in the fall.
Great. Thank you both for being here today, and our time is up, and I don't see any other additional questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. I will just say that please check out the CARC events page where we have our other calls that are happening each month, and we're halfway through the month, so there's a couple more calls that you can address. And other than that, that's all I have for today. And thanks everybody for being here. And please join us for our next call.